All right, let's get right into it. We're about to take a deep dive into John Milton's incredible epic Paradise Lost, and we're going to tackle one of the biggest, most mind-bending questions in all of theology. If we were created perfect, how in the world could we choose to fall? But let me start by asking you this. Just imagine for a second, what if you got a direct, crystal-clear warning about the absolute worst mistake you could ever possibly make? Would that warning actually be enough to stop you? That question, right there, is the very heart of the conflict we're about to unpack.
So our story kicks off in the Garden of Eden. I mean, it's perfect, right? Adam wakes up from a blissful sleep, but something's wrong. He finds Eve, and she's deeply troubled. A shadow has fallen over paradise, not in reality, but inside a dream.
And this is the poison whispered into her sleeping mind. The promise that you can be more than you are, that you can have forbidden knowledge. The seductive, dangerous idea that you could be, well, a god. This is the first time that thought has ever entered human consciousness.
You know, the dream itself is just this masterclass in subtle manipulation. It starts with a voice she trusts, one that sounds just like Adam's, calling to her. It leads her right to the one place she shouldn't go, the tree of knowledge. And there, a glowing figure, like an angel, actually eats the fruit and then urges her to do it too. She dreams that she eats, that she flies up into the heavens, and then she wakes up, horrified, but so relieved it wasn't real.
So here's the really crucial point Milton is making. Temptation is not the same thing as sin. The dream shows us that Eve's innocence, yeah, it's vulnerable, but all Satan can do is plant a seed, a suggestion. He can't make her do anything. The idea is now there, but her free will, her power to choose, is still 100% hers.
And what about Adam? How does he react? Well, he's definitely concerned. I mean, he's wondering how any hint of evil could get into Eden in the first place. But he comforts Eve. He tells her dreams are just fancy, what we'd probably call imagination. They're just harmless echoes. The important thing, he says, is that her reason, her logical mind, is still in charge of her will.
Okay, so as this little drama unfolds in Eden, the camera sort of pans up, way up, to the cosmic scale of heaven. Because God has seen it. He's seen Satan sneak into paradise, and there is no way he's going to let humanity just walk into this trap completely blind. Now, God's motivation here is absolutely central to Milton's whole argument. He's sending a messenger for a very specific reason, so that later Adam and Eve can never say they didn't know. They can't claim ignorance or that they were tricked. They need to be fully aware of the stakes.
So, the Archangel Raphael gets the assignment, and his mission objectives are crystal clear. Number 1, warn them there's an enemy hiding in the garden. 2, explain just how dangerous this enemy is. 3, and this is a big one, remind them that their obedience is totally, completely their choice. And 4, make sure they understand that whatever happens, God's plan is just.
And this right here, this is Milton's great paradox, laid bare. On one hand, you have divine foreknowledge. God is all-knowing, so of course he knows they're going to fall. He's already seen it happen. But on the other hand, for that fall to mean anything, for God's justice to hold up, Adam and Eve have to be genuinely free. For Milton, writing in the 17th century, this was huge. It's an argument for individual choice over the idea of predestination. In his version, they absolutely have the power to stay obedient.
So Raphael heads down from heaven. And this next part of the story, it's just breathtaking. It shows this incredible, easy communion between the divine and the human. A connection that, according to the poem, we've totally lost.
I mean, can you just picture it? Adam's just going about his day. He looks up and he sees this being of pure light, a figure with 6 wings, blazing like a phoenix, descending right towards his home.
And what are Adam and Eve doing when this incredible sight appears? They're gardening. They're peacefully working, in perfect harmony with nature, leading the vine to wed her elm. It's this beautiful image of simple, perfect order, and it's about to be interrupted by a message of cosmic importance.
And what happens next is it's so beautiful. Adam doesn't freak out, he welcomes Raphael. Eve rushes to prepare a feast from the fruits of paradise, and they sit down, a human couple and an archangel, and they eat a meal together. Milton even pauses to lament this lost ideal, this world where heaven and earth could just hang out and share a meal.
All right, now we get to the real reason for the visit. The meal is over, and it's time for the lesson to begin. This is the official warning. You could almost call it Free Will 101.
Raphael starts by explaining that God gave them this incredible gift, reason. And it's not just about being smart or solving problems. For Milton, reason is the tool that lets you see what's true and good, and from that understanding, to freely choose to love and obey God. It's the bedrock of their freedom.
He then lays out the great chain of being. Think of it like a ladder. At the very bottom, you have inanimate objects. A step up, you've got plants, which can grow. Above them are animals with senses and life. But humans are at the top of the earthly ladder. They have all of that, plus spirit and that divine gift of reason.
And here it is, the core of the warning. Plain and simple. Your perfection, your happiness, this life in paradise, it isn't guaranteed. It's not a permanent state you've achieved. It is a choice you have to make over and over again. You are free to stand, Raphael tells them, but you are also free to fall.
Well, this incredibly deep lesson leads Adam, quite logically, to ask the toughest question of all. It's a question that pivots the entire story towards the very origin of sin itself. Raphael clarifies their situation one last time. You were made perfect, yes, but you were also made mutable. That's a key word. It means capable of change. You have the power inside you to preserve your perfect state or to lose it. The choice is entirely yours. And that's when Adam asks the question that just hangs over this entire epic. He gets it, he has free will, but what he can't wrap his head around is why. Why would any perfect being, living in a perfect world with a perfect, loving God, ever freely choose to throw it all away? It just doesn't compute.
How can something perfect choose to become flawed? It's the question that perfectly sets the stage for the next part of the story, Satan's rebellion. And really, it's a question we're still wrestling with. What is the logic of self-destruction? What does it truly mean to be free, if that freedom includes the freedom to fall?
So let's talk about the moment a perfect society just fractures. This is a story of cosmic rebellion, a war that starts not with a bang, but with a single secret thought of envy. And it's the story of one angel's incredible courage to stand alone against a tide of treason. Let's dive in.
All right, this is Book 5, second half. So we're dropping you right into the middle of the action at the very moment a peaceful heaven is standing on the absolute brink of civil war.
So, I want you to picture this, a state of perfect harmony. All of heaven's angels, countless legions of them, existing in total unity. It's a peace that seems like it would last forever, but it's about to be shattered by a single divine announcement.
God gathers every angel and makes this universe-altering proclamation. His Son is now anointed to rule right there at his side. And the command is simple, but it is monumental. Everyone in heaven shall bow to him. And almost everyone rejoices. Almost.
And right there, in that one deafening moment of silence from one of heaven's most brilliant and powerful archangels, that's it. The first seed of rebellion is planted. While the rest of heaven is celebrating, a dark thought starts to take root.
So how does this private feeling of being slighted just explode into a full-blown plan for treason? Well, we're going to go inside the mind of the angel who will become Satan to see exactly how it all went down.
That night, he can't sleep. The source material tells us he is literally tormented by envy. He feels that he, one of the highest archangels, should have been given the same honor as the Son. So let's be clear, this isn't about some grand principle. This is born from pure personal pride and jealousy.
And what's fascinating here is just how methodical he is. This isn't a crime of passion, you know? It's a calculated coup. First, he secretly meets with his number 2, Beelzebub. Then he gathers his armies, but under false pretenses. He tells them that harsh new laws are coming down the pipe. And then he travels to the north and builds a fake, counterfeit throne. It's a total power play. And his deception, it is devastatingly effective. Just let that number sink in for a second. 1/3, an entire third of heaven's angelic host, beings of incredible light and wisdom, they choose to follow him. It just speaks volumes about his charisma and the sheer power of his lies.
Okay, so now he's got his army, and this is the moment. This is where he takes his private envy and tries to turn it into a public cause. He's going to try and frame this whole rebellion not as treason, but as a righteous fight for freedom.
I mean, just look at the rhetoric he uses. He is a master of spin, right? He rebrands obedience as injustice and worship as tyranny. He uses the language of liberation, telling them to cast off this yoke. And the core of his entire argument is this: we are all equal to God in freedom. It's a radical idea that completely upends the very structure of heaven. And you know what? It's an incredibly persuasive speech.
And the legions cheer. The rebellion seems like a sure thing. But in that massive crowd of rebels, one single voice is getting ready to speak out against it all. And this is where the hero of our story finally emerges.
His name is Abdiel. And look, he isn't the highest archangel, he isn't the most powerful. But in this moment, he is, without a doubt, the most courageous. He stands up, all alone, to challenge the charismatic leader of this massive, rebellious army.
And Abdiel does not pull any punches. He cuts right through all the fancy talk and calls Satan's speech exactly what it is: blasphemous and ungrateful. He doesn't get bogged down in debates about freedom. His whole argument is based on a simple, profound truth. God created us, and therefore, he is our rightful king. It's a logic built on truth and gratitude, not on wounded pride.
So how does Satan respond to this? Oh, with this truly wild and flawed argument. He claims that because he can't remember being created, well, he must be self-begot. He must have created himself and is therefore equal to God. You can literally see how his pride is already corrupting his ability to even think straight.
And this, right here, this just lays out the entire conflict in a nutshell. You've got two completely opposite worldviews clashing. On one side, you have Abdiel's truth, which is rooted in gratitude. God created us, so he's our rightful king. And on the other, you have Satan's lie, which is just pure pride. Nope, we weren't created, we're self-made, and so we are equals.
So Abdiel makes one last powerful plea. He warns Satan, he begs him, stop this impious rage, and go seek forgiveness before it is too late. This is it. This is the final chance for peace, before war shatters the gates of heaven.
And how do they respond to his warning? They laugh at him. They mock him. And so Abdiel, having spoken the truth and been totally rejected, turns his back on the rebellion and flies away. A solitary figure of loyalty against a sky just swarming with traitors. War is now certain.
And that really leaves us with a huge question to think about, doesn't it? In this story, and maybe in our own world, what truly gives an argument its power? Is it the undeniable logic behind it, the kind of truth Abdiel was speaking, or is it just the number of voices who are willing to cheer for it?
All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're witnessing the beginning of a war story that is just on another level entirely. Not on some earthly battlefield, but right in the heart of heaven. We're jumping into the incredible account from Book 6 of Milton's Paradise Lost, and the whole thing is told to us by the angel Raphael.
Now, it's super important to remember who's telling this story. We're hearing it from Raphael, an angel, who's explaining it all to Adam, the first human. So he's basically got this impossible job. Translate a totally unimaginable celestial war into words a mortal mind can actually wrap its head around. Everything we're about to see is through that filter. Divine conflict, but told in human terms. So before a single sword is even drawn, the story zooms in on our first hero, the angel Abdiel. And his story? It doesn't start on the front lines, but deep inside enemy territory.
I mean, can you just imagine the guts this took? When Satan first announces his big rebellion, Abdiel is the only one, literally the only one, who stands up and calls him out, completely surrounded by legions of angels who've already turned. After that crazy confrontation, he turns his back on all of them and makes the long flight back to God's side.
And what a comeback it is! The loyal angels are all getting ready for battle, and God himself actually pauses everything to praise Abdiel. This is a huge deal. It immediately sets Abdiel up, not just as some soldier, but as the moral compass of the whole story, his righteousness validated by the highest power there is. Okay, so Abdiel's defiance is the spark, but how does that ignite an all-out war? Well, with him back on the right side, the stage is now set, and heaven gears up for a conflict that, honestly, seems like it shouldn't even need to happen. And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's really at the heart of this whole epic. If God is all-powerful, why not just, snap his fingers and poof, rebellion over? Why go through the motions of a war when he already knows exactly how it's going to end? Well, it turns out the war isn't really for God's sake, it's for everyone else's. Think of it as a cosmic object lesson. It gives the faithful angels the chance to prove their loyalty, it shows everyone the truly ugly consequences of sin, and, most importantly for us reading it, it's this grand metaphor for that inner battle between good and evil that every single human is eventually going to face. So, with the purpose set, God appoints his generals.
The Archangel Michael, the ultimate warrior, gets put in charge of heaven's army. And his second in command, the ever-reliable Gabriel. The leadership is clear, organized, and divinely appointed.
And then God does something really fascinating. He makes sure the heavenly army has the exact same number of angels as Satan's rebel forces. Now, this isn't because God needs a fair fight, not at all. It's a symbolic move. It's an act of justice, to prove that the rebels won't be beaten by sheer numbers, but by the fact that their cause is just inherently weaker.
The two armies fly to meet each other. You've got these perfect shining ranks of light on one side, and the chaotic, dark hordes on the other. But before they actually start fighting, there's a battle of words, an ideological showdown right there on the front lines.
And would you look at how Satan rolls up, not just as a general, but riding in a golden chariot, a flashy, tacky parody of God's own throne. This is just pure blasphemy. It's him trying to copy and mock divine power. And for Abdiel, who just got back from defying this exact kind of arrogance, this is the last straw.
This chart just perfectly nails the massive gap between their worldviews. For Abdiel, serving God is the natural, right, and joyful way of things. But for Satan, he calls it slavery. He twists obedience into servility and paints his own narcissistic rebellion as freedom.
So Abdiel steps forward, totally unafraid, and confronts Satan head-on. He calls him out for his disobedience and then just lays down the simple, terrifying truth. You cannot possibly win a fight against the Almighty. It's not a threat. He's just stating a fact.
Satan, of course, just spits back insults and propaganda. He mocks Abdiel, calls him a coward, and tries to corrupt the very definition of loyalty. See, he's not just fighting a war of swords, he's fighting a war of ideas, trying to twist the meaning of good and evil itself. All right, the speeches are over. The lines have been drawn in the sand. But words can only do so much. This ideological battle is about to get very, very physical.
And then, in this absolutely stunning moment, Abdiel, the one angel who stood alone, the symbol of faith, steps forward and delivers a single massive blow. He strikes the great adversary himself, the leader of the entire rebellion, and sends him staggering backward, totally shocked and humiliated in front of both armies.
This is so much more than just the first punch of a fight. It's a physical demonstration of a spiritual truth. This one hit proves that for all of Satan's power and all his pride, goodness has an inherent strength that evil just can't compete with. All his big talk is shown to be completely empty.
And with that single act of righteous power from one faithful angel, the war in heaven begins.
Which kind of leaves us with a big question to chew on. Milton shows us that at its core, good is just fundamentally stronger than evil. So why, in our own lives, does that internal spiritual war against our own worst impulses so often feel like such an exhausting, evenly matched fight? That's definitely something to think about.
All right, let's dive into one of the most epic stories ever told, The War for Heaven from John Milton's Paradise Lost. We're going to break down the absolutely wild 3-day battle that literally tore heaven apart and really set the stage for evil itself.
And it all kicks off with this, Satan's famous, defiant declaration. You have to understand, these aren't just empty words. This is his entire mission statement, a rebellion that's fueled by a pride so massive, so unbreakable, it's about to launch a war against God himself.
So, Act 1, the stalemate. On the very first day of the war, something happens that no one thought was even possible. The trumpet sounds, and these two armies of angels, who were once brothers, remember, they just crash into each other. It's chaotic, it's brutal, and somehow it's a completely even match.
But there's a secret to why it's so even. See, you've got Michael's army fighting for divine order, and then you have Satan's crew, driven by pure, raw ambition. But what the angel Raphael later reveals is that God himself was actually nerfing them, holding back their full power and guiding the tactics to make sure these furious angels didn't completely wreck their own home.
This stalemate, though, it's about to get shattered in a huge way. Right in the middle of all this chaos, a single duel is about to go down that will change everything, not just for the war, but for what it even means to be an immortal angel. So the two leaders, Michael and Satan, they finally come face to face. They're trading threats, and the poem describes it like two planets colliding. And Michael, well, he's got something special, a sword forged and tempered by God. This isn't just a weapon, It's basically an instrument of divine justice.
And with one single devastating blow, Michael's sword slices right through Satan's entire side. And this, right here, is the game-changing moment. For the first time in all of existence, an immortal being feels pain. Can you even imagine the shock, the absolute foreignness of that feeling? The entire rulebook for this war just got thrown out the window.
And the result is immediate panic on the rebel side. Satan's followers are scrambling to carry him off the field as he bleeds this stuff called nectarous humor. His army is terrified. This brand new concept of pain introduces something they had never ever considered: consequences. And this shows you the huge difference between the two sides. While the rebels are falling apart, Michael's army pulls back in a perfect, disciplined cube, a literal symbol of the divine order they're fighting to protect.
And that brings us to Act 2. After a night of recovery, because even wounded angels heal up pretty quick, Satan gets his troops back together. He knows now that just hitting harder isn't going to work. The war is about to pivot from a battle of strength to one of truly diabolical cleverness.
I mean, think about it. This is the huge strategic problem Satan is facing. Your enemies are immortal. They heal from pretty much any wound. So how do you possibly defeat them? You can't outlast them. You can't kill them. You have to completely change how you fight.
So Satan's solution is a dark piece of genius. He tells his followers to literally mine the ground of heaven itself, to dig up what he calls dark and crude materials, to make a totally new kind of weapon. And overnight, they invent gunpowder and the cannon. For Milton, this was a huge statement. Modern warfare, artillery, it's a technology born from evil, a corruption of the natural order.
So, day 2 of the war begins, and the whole conflict is about to escalate to a point where heaven itself is at risk of being turned completely upside down. The rebels are ready to unleash their awful new invention.
They hide the cannons, make a few sarcastic comments about peace, and then Satan gives the order. The cannons just erupt, ripping through the loyalist ranks. Suddenly, the good angel's armor, made for swords and spears, is useless. And, for the first time, they experience pain on a massive, terrifying scale.
So, how do you fight back against cannons when all you've got is a sword? Well, you don't. You just change the scale of the fight. Michael orders his angels to retaliate with the landscape itself. They literally start uprooting hills, tearing up entire mountains, and just hurling them down on top of the rebel artillery, burying Satan's army under the very ground they corrupted.
Okay, so let's recap real quick. Day 1 introduces pain to the universe. Day 2 brings in technology and, landscape tossing. The whole war has become this chaotic, destructive stalemate, and God realizes if this keeps going, there won't be a heaven left to save. It's time for the final act. Act 3, the resolution. As night falls on that second insane day, God basically says, that's it, no more. There will not be a third day of angels fighting angels. The stalemate has to be broken, and he's sending in a new champion to end it, once and for all.
And then the Son of God appears. He's not just another warrior, though. He's like an avatar of pure divine power. He shows up armed with 10,000 thunders, riding this chariot of overwhelming, blinding glory. He's not there to fight a battle. He's there to end the war. And the effect is total. Instant. The second the sun charges, the entire rebel army just breaks. All that pride, all that ambition, it just vanishes, replaced by pure abject terror. They flee like a scattered flock of goats, running to the edge of heaven where they find this giant gaping wound in reality that their own war had created. And rather than face the sun's wrath, they willingly leap into the abyss, falling for 9 straight days through pure chaos before finally crash landing in the place that will become hell.
So why this incredibly epic story? I mean, it's amazing, but it's not just for show. This entire story of the war in heaven was told by the angel Raphael directly to Adam in the Garden of Eden, and it was meant to be a critical warning. Because at the end of the day, the whole war is just one giant, cosmic metaphor for the poison of disobedience. That's the one act that blinds you. It makes you think you can actually challenge the unchallengeable. It convinces you that you're right, that you're supreme, right up until the very moment you cause your own catastrophic downfall.
And that really leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? Raphael's story was a direct warning to Adam about the dangers of pride and temptation. A warning that, as we all know, he didn't listen to. So the question for us, all these centuries later,
is what does this timeless story warn us about today?